I go Nora Thompson from my name. Like most evenings since arriving in Monte Carlo, tonight I found myself seated alone at a little cafe on the outskirts of the busy casino square. After graduating from a posh college stateside, all I wanted was a basic break, distant from the opulent world I was born into. From hotels to technology companies, my dad seems to possess half the planet. To keep things honest and to drive the vultures away, though, I used my mom's last name. The evening was cool when he arrived. Daniel appeared to be in charge, or at least as he felt he was. Pulling out the chair across from me without asking, swaggering over with a confidence that I suppose comes from wearing a suit more than most people's rent, "Mind if I sit?" he asked at last after having taken a seat. His smile was obviously charming, most likely learned. I answered, only glancing up from my coffee, "Looks like you're already sitting." He laughed. The sound seemed a little too perfect. "You are Daniel, and I am Daniel." I responded sharply, "Nora," giving him a brief once-over. Not my normal kind, too polished, but definitely beautiful. "So, Nora, what brings a girl like you to a pricey haunt like this all by yourself?" His voice seemed like a tease, and I wasn't sure if I would find entertainment or irritation. "Just enjoying my coffee," I said evasively. "What's your pardon?" I would be lying, even though I could claim business. Let's say tonight I'm looking for something intriguing, and it seems like I might have found it, he remarked, staring me steadily. I arched an eyebrow. "Hope the coffee meets your expectations, then." Daniel gave a chuckle. "Something tells me it's already exceeded them." "I came here not to make friends. Obviously not looking for a fling. Look, I'm certainly not interested in whatever game you're playing, and I'm not one of those girls that falls for lines if that's what you're aiming for." "Who says I'm playing a game?" His voice dropped a little as he asked. I said, "Experience. You start with a cue, sit down uninvited, and expect what? Phone number. Just a date." Leaning back, he seemed really amused. "Now you're tough. I like that. Just talking, not searching for a number. If it is too much, though, utter the word and I will disappear." I gave him some thought just now. Monte Carlo was lovely but isolated. Perhaps a little conversation might help. Conversation is good, but keep it light. We spoke for a good while. The chat was shockingly simple. I offered no personal details. He did not press for them. I was actually enjoying the talk as the evening descended, despite first misgivings. Unlike the usual men who would try to wow me with their connections or cash, Daniel wasn't like that. He seemed to be used to the finest things, but not defined by them. The dusk cooled down, and it was time to head off. As I stood to go, "Well, Daniel, this was unexpectedly pleasant," I said. "Surprised yourself, huh?" asked he, grumbled, and inquired with a smile. "Perhaps just a little bit. Good night, Daniel." His comments repeated faintly in my head as I returned to my flat. Monte Carlo was truly full with surprises. Maybe tonight I would have come across one. Following that initial meeting with Daniel, Monte Carlo's evenings appeared a little less lonely. Whether I was enjoying a late dinner by myself or browsing the neighborhood markets during the day, he seemed to be everywhere. His tenacity surprised me. It was not at all unpleasant. Perhaps in part because he was not demanding. He simply appeared really interested in hanging around with me. He walked over 2 coffees in hand and sat down next to me silently one breezy evening as I was seeing the sun set below the horizon. Assuming I wanted coffee, I poked fun, lifting an eyebrow. He carried a cup to me. "If I'm mistaken, I'll sip both." "Good estimate," I remarked, taking the coffee. We sat in solitude for some time, the sound of the waves filling the quiet times. Daniel said at last, "You never told me what you do back in the States." I shrugged, not thinking it important. "I work. I'm just loving not working right now." "Fair enough," he said with laughter. "Everyone's got a story, though, don't you think? We settled into a simple schedule over the next several days. Daniel showed me portions of Monte Carlo I had not previously seen. We discussed everything, including nothing: movies, literature, our preferred cuisine. While I was all about the oldies like Sean Connery, he loved to debate the finest James Bond actor, fervently supporting Daniel Craig. He stopped abruptly one day as we were meandering along the beach and looked at me gravely, a gaze I had not seen before. "Nora, I know I'm just some man you met at a cafe, but these last weeks have been, I'm not sure, exactly different. Better still because of you." I stopped too, not sure what to say. Not what I intended to handle here were emotions. "Daniel, I enjoy our hanging out. I do, but for myself, this is only a break. I'm not searching for complications." He nodded gently, then inhaled deeply. "I understand it. Not under pressure. Just know that I am here, okay? And you really are very fantastic." Days stretched into weeks, and my stay in Monte Carlo was nearing close end. Spending more and more time with Daniel, what began as informal walks and discussions evolved into late-night dinners and early morning brunches. Falling in love someone under Mediterranean stars was the last thing I expected. Then one evening, he made a bombshell drop-off. "Come back with Nora, work in the States for my firm. Though I know it's abrupt, I just think it may be fantastic." The concept was wild, really absurd, and yet part of me yearned, driven by the adventure and the concept of grabbing this, whatever it was, and seeing where it may go. Returning to the States seemed as though one were entering another planet. Daniel's offer invited into his life rather than only a job. I was suddenly a regular girl who'd lucked out living in an ordinary flat in an average district of town. But my father saw ordinary differently. One afternoon, just as I was sorting my last box, he walked up uninvited. As he stood in the doorway, towering and more than life, his explosive laugh permeated my little living room. Nora, hiding right in front of us, he laughed and gave me a huge embrace, nearly breaking my ribs. "Tell me then about this choice. You must find this man unique if you can move like this." Though his voice was light, I could know he was probing, doing his fatherly job to find any trouble. I slumped down on the couch. "The name of his is Daniel." "Dad, you are different." "He is not aware of all this," I added, gesturing vaguely around to suggest the affluence and the complex strings accompanying it. Dad sat down next to me, his face now austere. "Nora, you know you cannot keep that a secret forever. Should he become a part of your life, he should know you." "I know, Dad says I merely want to be sure about him before I complicate everything. Still, thanks for watching out for me. Like he used to when I was little, he combed my hair. Always, kiddo. Remember, I'm merely a phone away should you require anything. And I have eyes all around," he said with a wink. The next several weeks were a frenzy of adjusting to my new career in life. Though Daniel was always present, supportive, and as charming as ever, there was a sharpness to him now that he bore obligations. Daniel brought up a topic I had been fearing one evening over a calm meal at my house. "Nora, when do you suppose I will be able to see your parents? I sense a great void in your life." I stopped as the weight of the occasion sank over me. "Well, my dad's just a typical driver. My mom died a long time ago. Right now, we're not precisely on speaking terms." Daniel wrinkled his face, a trace of worry across it. "I regret to learn of it, but you know I would like to meet him whenever you are ready. Family is really important." I nodded, understanding fully the realities of my father's world, a world I wasn't ready to expose Daniel to yet, but appreciating his sincerity. Living with Daniel moved at a speed I never would have imagined. We were already harmonizing our life. I was working at his company, and our relationship was developing more deeply. Though I suppose it all felt like we were preparing for something major, I was still surprised when that momentous event took place. That evening was like every other. We were in his flat, a nice modern one with city skyline views. We just completed dinner. Nothing special, simply some takeout as neither of us felt like cooking. Sitting on the couch, a documentary about ocean life played in the background, the kind you see but not really watch. Daniel turned to me, his countenance more somber than the circumstances demanded. I felt my heart accelerate as he took my hand. "Nora, I have been thinking about us, about everything we have gone through, and about everything I want for us going forward." I nodded, my mouth dry at once. "Yes. Love you, Nora. I love everything about you and cannot see my life without you." He stopped and, clearly apprehensive, I could see him swallow hard. That applied to two of us? "I want to be with you always. Would you be married to me?" Like that. No ring box opening. No knee falling on one side. Simple, real, and so very Daniel. Indeed, the word came out in a rush, almost like relief. "Surely I will." He held me tightly and flashed that broad, contagious smile that had drawn me in from the first day. The remainder of the evening, we discussed our future, what we wanted, where we envisioned ourselves. Though everything seemed correct, it was thrilling and a little scary. When I told my parents, the next test arose. Though his answer was at best lukewarm, I expected him to be thrilled. "Nora, are you sure you know I only want your happiness? It's all happening so quickly," he added, his voice tinged with anxiety. "Dad, sure, you will see. He is a fantastic man." I aimed to project more confidence than I felt. He moaned. "All right, but promise me you will sign a prenup just to be safe." Though Daniel didn't know the whole depth of it, the word prenup didn't scare me. It was simply another element of the modern marriage package, especially with someone who had as much to lose as I did. "Obviously, Dad, we will address it." I told him that was good then. "Nora, I am not going to the wedding. I don't want to ruin your narrative of a modest girl." The introduction to Daniel's mother followed then. Her reception from beginning was frigid. She examined me closely with a cold-blooded glare over supper at their family house. "Daniel, are you absolutely positive about this girl?" She said squarely, "She doesn't seem like a fit for our family." Daniel tried to smooth things out, but his mother was unrelenting. "A prenuptial agreement is non-negotiable," she said. Knowing it might help to reduce some anxiety, I answered without thinking twice. "Absolutely, I wouldn't have it any other way," I answered as we subsequently formalized the terms under a lawyer's attendance. Notwithstanding these challenges, our Maldivian wedding was very beautiful. I had hoped standing next to Daniel on the beach underfoot and with the ocean murmuring behind us. It was simply our love, our future ready to be shaped together. Though familial expectations set a difficult path, wedded life began better than I could have anticipated. Daniel and I settled into our new house, a lovely space more than we would have ever needed. That was meant to be the start of our ideal life together. Driven to demonstrate that I was more than just the wife of the boss, I pushed myself back into work. Although my job at the company had always been demanding, there was now extra expectation involved. Apart from overseeing projects, I was involved in important decision-making procedures. At least first, Daniel seemed pleased. In meetings, he would introduce me with a slight air of pride. "This is Nora, our project head and my wife." But as the months passed and the initiatives under my direction proved profitable and raised the company's prestige, something in Daniel changed. At first, it was subdued, a phrase here, a small gesture there. He raised it one evening as we were seated for dinner. "Nora, at work you're doing really well." Too wonderful, perhaps. Confused, I turned from my plate. "What do you mean, too fantastic? That is fantastic for the business." "It is," he said, gesturing his food around on his plate. "But you know, the guys are beginning to mention it's becoming the Nora show over there." His comments stung just a little. "Isn't that a somewhat unfair? You would be delighted that we are doing well," I thought. I'm glad, but it's simply plenty. Everyone talks about you constantly, about your style of handling things. Makes one question where I stand. That chat marked the beginning of many others. The pressure between us increased along with the business. Daniel's once supportive attitude was now slightly resentful. I was perplexed. Wasn't it he the one who first pushed me to get going? Things deteriorated when his mother came to spend some few weeks with us. Her presence in the house brought an old-world conventional mentality that I had always managed to escape. She would remark casually about my work, about how a wife need to be more present in her house. "Nora, you show up at the office constantly. When could you be free to look after your husband?" she would state. I attempted to brush it aside in order to keep the peace, but her comments just served to widen the growing distance separating Daniel from me. Nothing at work appeared to be able to offset what was gradually disintegrating at home. Our marriage suffered more the more I accomplished. Daniel arrived home from work one evening with a grimace locked on. "Nora, I would advise you to leave the business. Our family needs our attention. Thus it seems that your involvement there is simply aggravating too much conflict." Leave the business? Why, though? I have been so very generous. My voice rang with a mixture of incredulity and resentment. That's for the best. You may concentrate on the house and perhaps start the garden you have always mentioned. His tone was contemptuous, as though he were choosing something small rather than my career. I discovered the following day that he had let go of every member of our house crew, including cooks, cleaners, gardeners. Right now, I was all. You wanted to be more at home involved. "Here's your chance," he stated almost coldly. Although I didn't mind cleaning, the way this was presented felt improper. The lovely, sympathetic man I married was not this. This was someone else, someone incredibly repressive and demanding. Staying with us at the time, his mother seemed to savor the circumstances. "It's good for a wife to focus on her home," she would add, grinning slightly every time Daniel mentioned my new job as a full-time housewife. I felt guilty as I grew used to this surprising change in my life, ashamed that I had not noticed this approaching, embarrassed to tell my father that perhaps Daniel was right. I was dubious but eager when Daniel proposed a trip to Monte Carlo to maybe rekindle what was left of our spark. When his mother declared she would be joining us, that hope passed fast. "It's been years since I've traveled," she yelled loudly as if it were an unimputable directive. Of course, Daniel greeted her with wide arms, not once giving what I might think any thought. We leased a little house in Monte Carlo, which was lovely but expensive, and it soon turned into a prison rather than a haven. Daniel and his mother saw the city as their playground from beginning. I was left to roam the house while they leased opulent cars, visited stores, and ate at the best restaurants. They insisted on home-cooked food, reduced me to nothing more than a servant in a holiday house, cooking and cleaning after them as they gallivanted around the city. Days went by, and Daniel's mother's comments got more pointed, her tone more hostile. "Actually, Nora, living at someone else's cost must be rather the life, huh?" She would sneer, her comments a smack dressed in a smile. Daniel chuckled rather than stood up for me. Every time his laughter echoed over our makeshift house's frigid walls, it was a betrayal. I felt alone, the glitter of the city dulled by their contempt. One evening, we passed a magnificent old-style hotel whose front served as a reminder of a world of grace and dignity. Envy-filled in voice, Daniel's mother said, "Lucky billionaire Harris. Imagine running over a palace like that and having such a hotel." That evening, the final remnant of my tolerance collapsed in a cafe with a view of the sea. She signaled the waiter over with a great flip of her wrist as we settled down. "For Nora, the least expensive meal will work," she said loudly enough for the tables around to hear. "There is no need to treat her with luxuries she does not deserve." Daniel's answer was a laugh. His agreement came from the contemptuous flip of his hand as much as from his voice. Good call, Mom. Not too far should we go. Like the waves breaking on the rocks below us, humiliation swept over me. Rising from my chair, the sound of my seat reflected my stress. I confronted them both, my voice steady, louder than I meant. I will not tolerate this any longer, I said, hands shaking but resolve strong. I am divorcing Daniel, you say. As I left the restaurant, the coldness of treachery was far more than the cool air of Monte Carlo. Rather than coming to a tone, Daniel and his mother trailed behind with insults. My mother-in-law's voice, crisp and clear, rang out as I accelerated. Look just at her, a beggar unworthy of my son. My heart raced, but before I could get far, Daniel caught up and snatched my handbag from my shoulder, his fingers tightly clenched. Nora, this is my money. Go on, if necessary, get out on all fours. His voice was full of disgust as he snatched the handbag away, leaving me shocked on the sidewalk next him. His mother laughed savagely, her eyes shining with hate. Since Monte Carlo is all you are good for, maybe now you will learn to beg there. As I stood there wall-less and alone, their laughing rang down the street. But fate intervened as they launched their last insults. We were close to that magnificent old hotel, the one Daniel's mother had earlier dreamed about owning. Pointing to the hotel, she scoffed, maybe they'll let you in as a beggar. The hotel's gates opened at that same instant, and a guard materialized. He noticed me, and his face lit with recognition. Warmly calling out Miss Harris, he moved with a courteous salute. The scene changed the instant he mentioned my name. Daniel and his mother stopped. Their looks changed from satisfaction to perplexity. The guard wore a big smile. Your father advised us you could visit. Kindly this way. Always reserved for you is the greatest room. Regarding Mr. Harris's directives, the face of Daniel's mother went white. Her previous words turned to ashes in her tongue. Harris. Like in the wealthy Harris, she stammered, her former confidence collapsing. Ignoring both, I straightened my posture and headed towards the guard. Thank you, Pierre, my voice cool and collected. Inside I had a mixture of vindication and relief. Daniel's cries started behind me, frantic. Please, Nora. I did not mean not to be left behind, his mother yelled past her son. Perhaps we could come in for a drink at least. I turned forward rather than back. As soon as I walked into the hotel, the doors closing behind me seemed symbolic, cutting off the tumult of my former existence. Pierre walked me to the reception, where staff members treated me respectfully because of the daughter of their company. The long flight back to the United States gave me plenty of time to consider my future. By the time I arrived, my determination had hardened like the city sidewalks, ready to be walked upon yet unbending against pressure. The next day I was in the office of a respectable attorney, papers all around like a war map. The attorney said, his tone a mix of surprise and indignation, "It looks your husband neglected to pay you bonuses owed for the multi-million-dollar deals you closed." That sounds about right, I said, my head whirling over the many hours I had spent working for that company, the success I had driven. We are suing for $3 million. While Daniel stood there stumbling through his defense, the courtroom was frigid and sterile, a far cry from the intense glares he sent across the room. Once loved, the man looked quite pitiful. Daniel's face fell when the decision came, a landslide triumph paying me $3 million. He tried one last plea outside the courthouse. Nora, everyone is laughing at me. I screwed. Can we go back? Once his words touched my heartstring, that moment had gone by. Daniel, you just missed the money. Perhaps pay less attention to your mother the next time, I suggested, the edge in my voice cutting through the clear air. Turning, I headed off, the sound of my heels on the ground signifying the end of that chapter. I came home facing my father. Until I broke the stillness, the air between us was dense with unspoken words. "Dad, I ought to have heard you." He gave me a kind and forgiving hug. "You had to pick your own learning curve. You now know, and knowledge is half the fight." We discussed life, errors, and fresh starts late into the evening. His guidance was a lighthouse as I negotiated future ideas. Motivated by our discussion, I started building the foundation of my next project. My time working for Daniel's company not only sharpened my abilities, but also stoked a passion for the field I couldn't ignore. I chose to launch my own investment company. With my experience and the large payout, I had the means to launch something meaningful, something my weeks became months as I developed my company from nothing. Though the obstacles were great, every one of them taught me something. Every accomplishment verified that I was headed in the correct direction. From a disappointed wife in a loveless marriage to a capable business owner, I realized how far I had come when seated in my new office tearing down the busy streets below. Though each one of them had strengthened me, the road had been full with challenges.
I'm Sarah, a 34-year-old high school teacher with a knack for seeing the best in people, a trait that often defines my relationships, but sometimes complicates them too. It was a warm Saturday in June, perfect for a family BBQ in a spacious backyard of our suburban home. My husband, Mike, was focused on grilling, his usual ceremonial precision turning the process into an art form. The air was thick with the smell of barbecue and freshly cut grass. Yet beneath the surface, there was tension. "Sarah, you should really try talking to Laura more," Mike had suggested earlier while prepping the ribs. "She feels like you don't like her." I glanced over at Laura, animatedly chatting by the garden. "I'll make an effort," I agreed. "Sometimes I think she just misreads what I say." As the afternoon wore on, I found myself cautiously engaging Laura in conversation about work and hobbies. She had recently started a new job and was both eager to share and visibly stressed. "It's just so hard," she confessed, nursing her drink. "Everyone expects me to fail." I tried to offer comfort. "Everyone feels out of place at first. I remember when I started teaching, it felt like I was on trial every day. But you grow into it. Not everyone's going to be your cheerleader, and that's okay." My words, meant to reassure, seemed to land wrong. Laura's face stiffened. "So you think I'm not capable?" "No, that's not what I meant," I rushed to clarify. "I'm just saying it's normal to feel." But she had already turned away, walking over to her husband Derek, who was flipping burgers nearby. His head snapped up, eyes narrowing as he caught the gist of her recounting. The rest of the afternoon passed with a strange silence between them. As dusk settled and the guests trickled away, I decided to clear the air. I approached Derek, who now stood alone by the porch. "Derek, I think there's been a misunderstanding with Laura." "I didn't mean—" "Save it, Sarah," he interrupted, his tone sharp. "You always act so superior, so judgmental. Laura doesn't need your kind of support." His words stung because they couldn't have been further from the truth. "Derek, I genuinely—" "You genuinely what?" "Look down on us." His voice was rising and he stepped closer, his presence suddenly intimidating. "You disrespected my wife at my brother's house." Before I could respond, he shoved me hard. The world tilted as I stumbled backward, the wooden steps jarring against my spine as I hit the ground, pain shooting through me as I landed on the cold concrete. The murmur of concerned voices blurred around me as Mike rushed over, his face a mix of disbelief and worry. After the incident, an uncomfortable silence hung over our home. Mike helped me inside, gently applying an ice pack to my bruised elbow. His expression was clouded with concern, and something else I couldn't quite place. "Sarah, he didn't mean it," Mike started, his voice low. "It just got out of hand. Derek's under a lot of stress." I pulled away slightly, the ice cold against my skin. Mikey pushed me down the stairs. "That's not just getting out of hand. What if I had broken something?" I know it's bad, but he's my brother. He's apologized, hasn't he? Can't we just consider that maybe he didn't mean for it to go that far?" His words hung between us, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down. "An apology doesn't change what happened," I said firmly. "And it doesn't make it okay." Over the next few days, as my bruises turned from deep purple to a sickly yellow, I began documenting everything. Not just my injuries, but every strained interaction with Derek and Laura that I had brushed aside. I revisited old conversations, texts, and emails, piecing together a pattern of behavior I had long excused. One afternoon, over coffee, I cautiously brought up the topic with Jenna, my cousin who had always been more like a sister. "Jenna, have you ever felt uncomfortable around Derek?" She paused, her cup halfway to her lips. "I thought it was just me," she admitted. "Last Christmas, he made a comment about my job search, like I wasn't cut out for real work." He laughed it off, but it stung. Encouraged by Jenna's honesty, I reached out to others. Mike's aunt and uncle, who had distanced themselves from family gatherings, old family friends. The stories poured in, some hesitant, others angry, but all relieved to be heard. Piece by piece, I wove together a tapestry of intimidation and casual cruelty, hidden behind Derek's charm and easy apologies. Armed with these testimonies, I began a discreet file, documenting everything, not just for my peace of mind. But more than a defense, it was a record of truth. Each conversation, each shared experience from others strengthened my resolve. This wasn't just about a fall down the steps. It was about standing up to a bully who had hidden in plain sight, shielded by the family's reluctance to acknowledge who he really was. One late night, as I organized the evidence, papers, digital recordings, and screenshots, Mike found me at the dining table. His eyes were clouded with concern. "What are you doing, Sarah?" he asked, the worry lines around his eyes deepening. "Building my case," I replied, my voice steady. "Because next time, and with Derek, there's always a next time, I'll be ready to show everyone exactly who he is." The plan was simple in concept, but complex in execution. Organize a family gathering under the pretense of reconciliation, but with the real goal of exposing Derek for the aggressor he was. I needed this not just for my own vindication, but for everyone who had silently suffered. The date was carefully chosen, a weekend when everyone was available, no excuses for missing. Invitations went out, and I made sure to speak to each person personally, ensuring their attendance. "It's time to clear the air," I'd say, a half-truth that weighed heavily on my conscience. As the gathering approached, I reviewed my collection of evidence, texts, emails, recorded testimonies, a litany of aggression hidden behind closed doors. Mike watched with furrowed brows, but he said little. His silence felt like a storm brewing just over the horizon. The day arrived, deceptively calm. The house buzzed with guests, their greetings and small talk layered over the tension simmering underneath. Derek and Laura were the last to arrive, Derek's smile strained, unaware of what was about to unfold. Once everyone was settled with refreshments in hand, I stood up, tapping my glass lightly. The room hushed, all eyes on me. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," I began, my voice steady. "I know things have been difficult lately, and it's important we address the elephant in the room." Derek's eyes narrowed, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Laura's hand tightened around his, her knuckles white. "I've always believed in transparency and honesty within a family," I continued. "Recently, I was hurt, not just physically, but emotionally, by someone I trusted." My gaze locked with Derek's, challenging him to look away. He didn't. "What happened to Sarah was unfortunate," Derek interjected, standing to take control. "But it was an accident, and I've apologized. We're family. We should be moving past this." There were murmurs in the room, a mix of agreement and uncertainty. This was the moment of truth. "It was no accident, Derek," I countered, pulling out a folder. "And it wasn't the first time." I turned to the projector behind me, clicking through the emails, texts, and recordings I had collected. Aggressive messages, dismissive apologies, voices from those he had bullied or hurt over the years. One after another, the evidence piled up. The room grew eerily quiet as the voices from the recordings played on. Each testimony, each piece of evidence painted a picture of a man far removed from the charming brother-in-law he pretended to be. As the weight of the evidence mounted, so did the discomfort in the room. Family members glanced at Derek, then quickly looked away, unable to meet his gaze. His usual defenses faltered, slow and ineffectual. "This isn't what it looks like," Derek stammered, his confidence crumbling like a punctured balloon. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said softly, the room heavy with the weight of truth. Abuse hidden behind apologies and dismissals could no longer be ignored. The fallout was immediate. Conversations broke out across the room, not whispered, but open, raw dialogues about experiences and grievances long buried. Derek, once the life of every family gathering, found himself isolated, the social fabric he'd carefully woven unraveling around him. As people began to leave, some cast sympathetic glances my way, while others avoided Derek entirely. By the end of the evening, it was clear the family dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Derek's carefully built image was nothing more than a house of cards blown away in the wind. When the last guest left and the door clicked shut, Mike put his arm around me. His earlier reservations had melted away in the face of the undeniable truth. I didn't realize how bad it was. I'm sorry. It's not just about us, I replied, leaning into his embrace. It's about setting things right. No one should feel unsafe in their own family. In the quiet that followed, I felt a sense of closure, a battle fought and won, not just for myself. Derek's downfall wasn't something to celebrate, but a necessary step toward healing a fractured family. In the weeks following that pivotal family meeting, the repercussions of his actions began to surface. While I chose not to press legal charges for the incident at the BBQ, others who had endured his bullying and aggression were less forgiving. Complaints were filed, and several family members and former colleagues who had shared their stories with me took their grievances to formal platforms. The collective weight of their actions began to tip the scales toward accountability. Derek's career, once buoyed by his charismatic, if sometimes overbearing, personality, started to suffer. Word of his behavior seeped into his professional circles, affecting his consultancy business. Clients withdrew, not wanting to be associated with someone embroiled in public accusations of misconduct. Socially, invitations dwindled, and whispers at gatherings could no longer drown out the truth of his actions. As for me, the aftermath brought an unexpected sense of uplift. Support from family and friends, once hesitant to confront Derek, now flowed freely. Jenna and others thanked me for taking a stand, for giving them a voice when theirs had been silenced for so long. Mike, too, stood by my side, his earlier conflicted loyalties now resolved by the undeniable evidence. Our relationship, tested by the strains of confronting his brother, emerged stronger, fortified by honesty and mutual respect. Empowered by the collective support, my sense of self-worth and confidence soared. No longer did I question my instincts about Derek or wonder if I'd been too harsh. Taking action had brought a clarity that was liberating. With Derek and Laura, boundaries were firmly established. They remained part of the family as they had to be, but our interactions were cordial and distant. Mike and I agreed that while forgiveness was possible, forgetting was not. Our priority now was the safety and well-being of our family. Our home became a sanctuary again, no longer a battleground of hidden resentments or veiled threats. The peace that settled wasn't just the absence of conflict, but the presence of a newfound respect among all who entered. Mike and I found joy in the simple moments, quiet evenings together, the warmth of a supportive community, and the silent acknowledgement of our shared strength. Reflecting on this journey from betrayal to empowerment, the lesson became clear. Standing up for oneself and for others isn't just about confronting conflict, it's about fostering healing. Derek's future was now his to mend or further damage, but our path was clear, full of hope and promise. As we closed this chapter of our lives, I looked forward to a future where integrity and courage would define our family's legacy. And for anyone listening, remember, it's not just about weathering the storm, but learning to dance in the rain. Hi, I'm Sylvia. Looking back at my early years, I remember a childhood filled with love and laughter, thanks to my amazing parents. We weren't wealthy, and we didn't live in a fancy neighborhood, but we had each other, and that was more than enough. My sister Rachel and I were inseparable, always getting into mischief together. Our parents just laughed it off, saying kids needed to explore the world around them. But everything changed when I was 8. One rainy night, my parents were driving home from work when a truck skidded on the slick road and crashed into their car. They died instantly. At first, Rachel and I didn't understand why they never came home that night. It was our Aunt Melissa who broke the news to us. I remember her exact words. "Your parents had a terrible accident, Burles. They're gone." In the days that followed, Melissa made a decision that would change everything. She took in Rachel, saying she could only handle one child. Rachel was quiet, the kind of kid who could sit in a corner and read for hours. Me, I was too much like my parents, vibrant and always on the go. Melissa said I was too much for her to handle. I'm sorry, Sylvia, but you'll have to go somewhere else, somewhere more suited to energetic kids, she told me, barely hiding her disapproval. I couldn't understand. Weren't we both her nieces? Why was I the one left out? I was sent to an orphanage, a place that still haunts me with its antiseptic smell and cold, unfeeling walls. I felt abandoned, like a throwaway child, unwanted even by my own family. But fate had other plans. The Smiths, friends of my parents, heard about what had happened and came for me like angels in disguise. They didn't see the troublesome child. They saw a girl who had just lost everything. Why wouldn't we want you, Sylvia? Mrs. Smith said gently as they signed the adoption papers. You're going to be our daughter now, and we're going to make sure you have everything you need. Moving to a new city with the Smiths felt like stepping into a different world. They loved me as their own, never once making me feel like an outsider. They supported me through school, cheered me on at soccer games, and were there for every high and low. As I adjusted to my new life, I couldn't help but wonder about Rachel. How was she doing? Was Melissa kind to her? Did she miss me like I missed her? Life moved on, and I grew up in a home filled with love and acceptance, slowly healing from the wounds of my past. That's how my journey began, in a loving home that chose me when my own family turned me away. Hey Sylvia, you're awfully quiet today. What's on your mind? Mrs. Smith asked, looking concerned as she handed me a cup of coffee across the breakfast table. It's nothing really, I said, my voice trailing off. I had found a box of old letters in the attic, letters that weren't meant for me but had told me so much. Sylvia, whatever it is, you can tell us. We're here for you, Mr. Smith chimed in, his expression soft and inviting. Taking a deep breath, I decided it was time to share. I found letters from Aunt Melissa to my parents. I began, my voice trembling. She talked about taking in Rachel but not me. She said I was too much like my parents, too wild to fit into her perfect family. The room went silent. Mrs. Smith reached over, squeezing my hand. Oh, Sylvia, that must have been so hard to read, she said softly. It was, I admitted, but it explains a lot. Why she never came to see me, not even once. I guess I just wasn't the right fit. Sylvia, remember, we chose you because you fit perfectly with us, not because you needed to fit into some mold, Mr. Smith said firmly. I nodded, feeling the weight of years of confusion starting to lift. I know, and I'm grateful every day, but it still hurts, to be rejected because of who I am. We understand, sweetheart, but remember, you're not that little girl anymore. You're a strong young woman who has overcome so much, Mrs. Smith said, smiling warmly. Encouraged, I continued, You're right, and I'm going to use this. I'm going to write my thesis on family dynamics and acceptance. Maybe I can help others understand and deal with similar situations. That sounds like a wonderful idea. We're so proud of you, Mr. Smith said, his voice filled with pride. The rest of my college years flew by as I immersed myself in studies and part-time work, fueled by a desire to prove that being too much could actually mean having a lot to offer. My thesis on family acceptance was well received, opening doors to graduate studies and a promising career in social work. Each success felt like a silent nod to Melissa, showing that her rejection didn't define me but propelled me forward. My relationship with my adoptive parents grew stronger, and I found solace in knowing I was loved unconditionally. As my career took off, I often reflected on those difficult revelations and used them to drive my passion for helping others. Each family I helped reconcile felt like healing a little part of myself that had been broken. Through it all, I kept moving forward, determined to live a life full of love and acceptance, proving that sometimes being too much is just enough. One crisp afternoon, as I was settling into my office, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Hello, Sylvia speaking. This is Nurse Thompson from Greenwood Care Facility. I'm calling about your aunt, Melissa. She's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and her condition has deteriorated. Hearing Melissa's name after so long jolted me. I'm sorry to hear that, but there must be some mistake. Melissa and I haven't been in contact for years. I understand, Sylvia, but before her memory faded, she insisted we reach out to you if things worsened. Her family, they haven't visited in months. I paused, the weight of her words sinking in. I see. What exactly are you asking of me? Just a visit, perhaps. It might comfort her, even in her current state. I mulled it over, feeling an old wound reopen. Later at home, I turned to Jared, my fiancé. We sat on our porch, watching the sunset. Melissa's in a nursing home with Alzheimer's. They want me to visit her, I explained, unsure of my feelings. Sylvia, you don't owe her anything. Remember, she made her choices, Jared said, his voice steady. I know, but it's complicated. Part of me feels like I should do something. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Just think about what's best for you. The next day, I sought advice from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Sylvia, it's okay to protect yourself, Mrs. Smith said gently. You have your own life and your own family now. Melissa made her bed, Mr. Smith added. It's not your responsibility to fix it. Their words resonated with me, but I still needed more clarity. I decided to call Rachel, hoping to understand her absence from Melissa's life. Sylvia, I stayed away on purpose, Rachel confessed. Living with her, even as a favored child, was suffocating. When I left, I decided it was for good. Did you know about her condition? I asked. I did, but I chose peace, Sylvia. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary for my sanity. Rachel's admission hit me hard. We had both found our escape, our way to breathe away from Melissa's controlling shadow. After reflecting on my conversations, I made my decision. I called Nurse Thompson back. I've given it a lot of thought, Nurse Thompson, I said, my voice steady. I'm sorry, but I can't visit Melissa. It's a part of my past that I can't revisit. Please understand. I do, Sylvia. Thank you for considering it. We'll respect your decision. Hanging up, a mix of relief and sadness washed over me. Jared wrapped me in his arms, his support unwavering. You made the right choice for you, Sylvia, he assured me. Leaning into his embrace, I felt the strength of his support. Choosing to move forward on my own terms was perhaps the hardest, yet most freeing, decision I had made. Sitting across from Rachel at the cozy little cafe we'd chosen for our meeting, I felt a swirl of emotions, nerves, anticipation, hope. It had been years since we'd sat down together, just the two of us. Sisters trying to bridge the gap that time and circumstances had stretched wide. As we sipped our coffee, Rachel was the first to break the silence. I've missed this, Sylvia. I've missed you. I've missed you too, I replied, the familiar pain of our separation easing a bit with her words. I'm sorry we let so much time pass. We were both dealing with a lot, but I'm glad we're here now, she said, her smile tentative but genuine. The conversation shifted toward our aunt, and I hesitated before speaking. I heard about Melissa's condition. It must have been tough to hear after all these years. Rachel's expression clouded. Yeah, it brought up a lot of old feelings. But I realized that staying away was necessary for my own healing. She wanted to shape me into something I wasn't, and when I couldn't fit into that mold, it hurt a lot. I nodded, understanding her more than ever. She did the same to me in a different way. Rejected me because I was too much like mom and dad, too energetic, too lively. It's ironic, Rachel mused. She pushed us away trying to mold us, and now she's the one left alone. Yeah. And I've decided not to visit her, I said softly. It's hard, but it's what I need to do to protect my peace. I hope that's okay. Rachel reached across the table, squeezing my hand. It's more than okay, Sylvia. I support your decision. We both need to do what's best for us, not just what's expected. Our conversation drifted through memories of our childhood, the good and the bad, as we pieced together a clearer picture of our shared past. It was therapeutic, talking openly about the hurt and healing, about the life Melissa tried to dictate and the lives we reclaimed for ourselves. We have each other, Sylvia, Rachel said as we prepared to leave. That's what matters. Let's not let anyone come between us again. I smiled, feeling a profound sense of relief and reconnection. Agreed. It's us against the world, right? Right, Rachel echoed with a laugh. As we hugged goodbye, I felt lighter than I had in years, fortified by the renewed bond with my sister. Driving home, I reflected on our journey, the pain inflicted by Melissa, our paths of personal growth, and our decision to maintain our distance from her. It wasn't about holding grudges. It was about choosing our well-being and focusing on a future that belonged to us, not dictated by the shadows of the past. That night, as I shared everything with Jared, his steadfast support and understanding underscored the incredible strength I'd gained, not just from my chosen family, but also from reconnecting with Rachel. Together, we were moving forward, healing from our scars, and building lives filled with love and purpose. The morning Melissa passed away, there was a chill in the air, not from the weather, but from the finality of the news. Rachel called me early, her voice steady yet tinged with a whisper of old grief. "It's over, Sylvia. Melissa is gone." As I processed her words, a tangle of relief and sorrow twisted inside me. "Are you okay?" I asked, knowing the complexity of her emotions. "I think so. It's strange, isn't it? To feel relief that it's finally over," Rachel replied. "It is, but it's also okay. We've been carrying this burden for too long," I said, feeling the truth of my words deeply. We decided to attend the funeral together, not for Melissa, but for ourselves, to put to rest the last remnants of our painful past. Standing by her grave, the small gathering was stark, a testament to the solitary life she had led in her final years. There were no eulogies filled with warmth, only the cold recitation of her life and passing. As the pastor concluded his prayers, Rachel squeezed my hand, a silent pact between us. We were there to say goodbye, not just to Melissa, but to the shadow she had cast over our lives. Walking away from the cemetery, I felt a chapter closing, one that had lingered open far too long. In the weeks that followed, life moved swiftly toward a much happier occasion, my wedding. As I stood in the bridal suite preparing to walk down the aisle, I was surrounded by laughter and the bustling energy of my bridesmaids. Rachel was there, radiant and supportive, no longer just my sister but my best friend. "You look beautiful, Sylvia," she whispered, adjusting the veil on my hair. "Thanks to you. I couldn't have gotten here without your support," I replied, our eyes meeting in the mirror, a shared history reflecting back at us. The ceremony was everything I had dreamed of and more. Jared stood at the altar, his eyes brimming with emotion as I walked toward him. The church was filled with our friends and family, every face a reminder of the love and support that had guided me here. As Jared and I exchanged our vows, promising to build a future together based on love and mutual respect, I felt the weight of the past truly lift. We were moving forward, but we were doing so on our terms, our lives defined not by the shadows of what had been but by the light of what could be. The reception was a blur of music, dancing, and laughter. Mr. and Mrs. Smith danced every dance, their faces alight with joy. Rachel gave a toast that brought everyone to tears, not just for its words of love but for the journey it recounted, one of healing and rediscovery. As the night drew to a close, Jared and I stepped outside for a moment of quiet. The stars were out, a tapestry of light against the dark sky. "We did it," I said, my head resting against his shoulder. "We did," he agreed, kissing the top of my head. "Here's to new beginnings, to love, and to a future we create together." As we stood there, the night whispered around us, promising years of happiness to come, built on the foundation of choices made with courage and the strength to let go of the past. The air was no longer heavy with loss but light with the promise of the life we were ready to live. Now that our story has reached its conclusion, I have a question for you all. Sylvia and Rachel made the choice to attend Melissa's funeral not out of obligation but to seek closure on their own terms. Do you think attending the funeral of someone who hurt you was necessary for healing, or is it better to find peace from a distance? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Hi, I'm Lisa. For years, I've felt overshadowed by someone I could never seem to please, my mother-in-law, Brenda. Every day followed the same routine. I'd be up before dawn, moving silently to avoid her sharp critiques. By 6 a.m., I was already in the kitchen, the cold morning air mixing with the scent of brewing coffee. As the coffee dripped, I prepared breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, and Brenda's favorite, crispy bacon. The sizzling sound seemed to summon her from her room, like it was the only alarm she ever responded to. "Make sure the bacon's crispy, Lisa. And don't burn the toast like last time," came Brenda's voice from the doorway, icy and sharp. "Of course, Brenda, just the way you like it," I replied, keeping my voice steady, hoping to avoid an early clash. As I plated her breakfast, I could feel her eyes scrutinizing every move, as if I were walking on fragile glass. The slightest misstep would shatter the peace. The morning light barely seeped through the curtains when her voice cut through the stillness. "I want this house spotless today, Lisa. Start with making me a decent cup of coffee, not like yesterday's mess." Taking a deep breath, I measured the coffee grounds with extra care, hoping to avoid another complaint. The coffee maker hummed softly, a contrast to the tense atmosphere. I busied myself cleaning, dusting, vacuuming, ensuring everything was in order, even though I knew she would find fault anyway. The moment of truth came when I brought Brenda her coffee. She sat in her usual chair, watching me like a hawk. "Here you go. I made it stronger today," I said, offering a cautious smile. She took a sip, her face twisting in disgust. "This is awful. How hard is it to make a simple cup of coffee? Are you trying to irritate me on purpose?" she snapped. "Now, Brenda, I..." Before I could explain, she shot up from her chair, still holding the cup. "You're useless, Lisa. Absolutely useless." Her voice rose in fury as she stepped closer, grabbing my arm with a painful grip. "Please, Brenda, you're hurting me," I begged, my voice trembling. "Good. Maybe that'll teach you to do better." And with that, she did something she had never done before. She yanked my hair and shoved me back. I stumbled, stunned by the sharp pain and the few strands of hair that came away in her hand. I stood there frozen as tears welled in my eyes, not just from the physical pain, but from the realization of how far she was willing to go. Brenda tossed the coffee cup into the sink with a loud clatter. "Clean that up, and make the coffee again," she demanded before sitting back down. My mind raced. This couldn't continue. As soon as Brenda returned to her chair, I slipped out of the room, my hands shaking as I reached for my phone. With a deep breath, I dialed John's number. The phone rang, each tone heavy with the weight of what I was about to do. "John, it's me," I whispered. "I need to tell you what just happened." "Brenda," she attacked me. I can't live like this anymore." His voice came through, full of concern. "Lisa, what happened? Are you okay?" Tears streamed down my face as I spoke. She pulled my hair, shoved me. "I'm really scared. I don't know what to do." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "I'm so sorry, Lisa. I had no idea it was this bad. I'm coming home right now. We'll figure this out together. Just hang in there, okay?" As I hung up the phone, a newfound resolve settled over me. Today was the day everything changed. I couldn't live under Brenda's control any longer. When John arrived, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Without thinking, I ran into his arms, and he held me tight, speechless for a moment. "I'm so sorry, Lisa. I'm in shock that things escalated this far," he said softly. "But I'm glad you spoke up. Now, we need to find a way to fix this." Tears flowed down my face, and I felt so weak, but John's words, and just his presence, calmed me. That night was heavy with the weight of the decision we had made. But the next morning felt different, as though the air was lighter with the promise of change. When I came downstairs, John was already on the phone, speaking in a low, serious tone. "Yes, I understand the options, but we need something that allows for some independence too. That's crucial." He glanced up at me and gave a small, reassuring smile before finishing his call. Once he hung up, he motioned for me to come over. "I've been looking into care facilities that offer independent living arrangements," he said. "I want to make sure we find a place where Mom can still feel like she has her own space, but where we know she's safe and well taken care of." I nodded, grateful for his thoughtfulness in such a difficult situation. "That sounds like a good balance, John. Have you talked to her about it yet?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'm about to. Wish me luck." We found Brenda sitting in the living room, her posture still holding a hint of defiance, though her demeanor was more subdued. John sat across from her, his expression serious but kind. "Mom, we need to talk about what's next. I found a few places that I think would suit you. They're nice, comfortable, and you have your own apartment." Brenda's face hardened. "So you're sending me away now, after one mistake." John remained calm. "It's not about sending you away, Mom. It's about finding a solution that keeps everyone safe and healthy. This isn't just about yesterday. It's about a pattern that we can't ignore anymore." Brenda's voice rose, her anger simmering. "I don't mean to be managed, John. I'm not a child." "This isn't about treating you like a child," John said gently. "It's about making sure Lisa feels safe and that you have the support you need as you get older." Brenda turned her gaze away, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I never thought it would come to this. It's not an easy decision," John admitted, "but I believe it's the right one. The place I found has great reviews and the people seem really nice. You can come visit anytime, or we'll visit you whenever you want." After a long pause, Brenda finally nodded, her voice quiet. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's for the best. I know this is hard, John continued, but I think it will be good for you. You won't have to worry about the house, and there are plenty of activities to keep you busy. Brenda let out a deep, resigned sigh. All right, John. I'll try it, for you, but I'm not making any promises. John gave her a gentle smile. That's all I'm asking, Mom. As we left the room, John squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement of the difficult but necessary decision we had made. The atmosphere felt permanently changed. It felt like we were finally moving towards something healthier, something better. The morning sun poured into the kitchen, casting a warm glow over the breakfast table where John and I sat, enjoying the quiet that had once seemed so elusive. He reached across the table, his hand finding mine. Can you believe how peaceful it is? John mused, a smile spreading across his face. I squeezed his hand, the tranquility of the moment washing over me. It's like we're finally breathing again. I didn't realize how much tension I was holding onto until now. He nodded, his gaze thoughtful. I'm sorry it took so long to make things right. I should have seen it sooner. It's not your fault, John. We both hoped things would get better. I'm just so grateful for how you stood by me and took action when it mattered. I replied, my voice filled with appreciation. John's expression softened. I'll always be here for you, Lisa. I promised that on our wedding day, and I mean to keep that promise. No one should make you feel unsafe, especially not in your own home. The coffee machine beeped, signaling that our brew was ready. As I stood to pour us each a cup, I reflected on how far we'd come, from feeling overwhelmed and undervalued to this moment of mutual respect and support. You know, John, it's strange how things turn out. I feel stronger now, more confident in standing up for myself. That's all I've ever wanted, for you to be happy and strong. John replied, watching me with eyes full of love. As we sipped our coffee, we talked about plans for the future. Simple things like redecorating the living room or planting a small garden in the backyard. Every word and laugh felt like a building block in the new foundation of our relationship, one no longer shadowed by Brenda's oppressive presence. I've been thinking a lot about karma lately, I said, setting down my cup. John raised an eyebrow, intrigued. What brought that on? Just seeing how everything unfolded. Brenda made her choices, and those choices led her to a new place. One that might actually be better for her in the long run. It's not about punishment, but more about the natural balance of things, I explained, my thoughts clear and firm. It's comforting to think there's some kind of balance, that by standing up for yourself, you're not just causing conflict but restoring that balance, John said thoughtfully. I smiled, the early rays of sunlight catching the edges of my hair. Exactly, and now we get to focus on building something positive here, just the two of us. John reached for my hand again, his touch reassuring. Here's to new beginnings, to peace, and to us growing stronger together. As we sat there, the world outside slowly waking up, I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of peace. The journey had been hard, fraught with challenges and tears, but it had led to this new dawn filled with promise and newfound strength. And in that quiet light, I finally understood, standing up for yourself is sometimes the most powerful statement you can make. As our story comes to a close, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think moving Brenda to a care facility was the right decision? Or do you feel John and Lisa should have handled things differently? Please share your opinions in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe.